Director of Blue Beetle, Angel Manuel Solo, talks a little bit about taking the job of Blue Beetle when it was supposed to be only a HBO Max release and what changes they had to do to upscale it to a full-on theatrical release. So a lot of people seem to have forgotten that when Blue Beetle was announced, it was supposed to be a cheap film made for HBO Max only. This was also announced right alongside the Wonder Twins, which started production, and right ahead of them was Batgirl, which was halfway into production. Blue Beetle was going to see the same type of release as Batgirl, which was a hybrid then, until they changed to a full-on theatrical. So him talking about the fact that he came on and they told him, you're making a film for HBO Max, so you don't have much of a budget, here's your constraints, go. But when they changed it, he said they came back to him and said, you can increase these elements. You can add more to the cast. You can go more spectacle in the third act. You can add more of the DC universe. Have a more vivid landscape in terms of what we're showing for the main city. So essentially just raise the budget up everywhere and see what happens. And he says that this was one of those things that opened them up to the possibility of exploring more of the world with Jaime, but also what they could put in. And he says he doesn't want to get into it, but there was a lot of stuff that wasn't in the initial version of the film. Now, I'm just going to guess probably a lot of stuff with the third act, especially dealing with the Scarab ship from Ted Kord, that stuff. Obviously, the third act also goes all over the place in terms of like Iron Man 1 with visual effects and the bad guy and the good guy. I'm going to assume that was probably upscaled a little bit because there's a lot more suit action in there, so toss in a bunch more CG. I'm just going to guess it's things like that that really made it look like that, right? Also, this kind of tells you their mentality. Hey, we're shifting from a hybrid release or a standalone to theatrical. It's got to look theatrical, so make sure it does. Make sure it has that feel. And obviously, I think most of you know what I'm talking about. TV film versus a blockbuster in the theaters. You can tell the difference, right? You can tell what goes on in making each one. And you can definitely tell that Blue Beetle has holdovers of what it was before, but you can tell which parts they clearly amped up to have more money behind them. So it's kind of cool to learn that, yeah, they gave them more money and said, go back to and figure out what you think deserves more.